Okay, so this is a guide to the prosperity and village production overhaul we did for the mount&blade Total War Bannerlord mod. And the way it works is that I have a set of maps I use to do research, and these are here. So I have this map here, which contains Europe's population estimates. And obviously we cannot be certain of the accuracy of the sources, probably no one ever will. Either way, we just picked one reference manual and we use those for the map. So I divide the map following some easy to follow lines. This is the edited map, this is the unedited map, just to show the difference. And so for example here I used this river here, then I know here's a mountain range in the map of mount&blade, and then I keep using this river and here to cut down and create an isolated area. I divided into, which is pretty much France, like Germany, and this would be the Baltic region, this is Alps and Austria, this is Italy, and then the Isles are separated. I use this map. Once I cut it into pieces, what I count is the amount of people that are in. Here there is how many people more or less the estimate is. So here I write how many millions of inhabitants this area should have. And then I have another map which has all the villages. This I have already cut into pieces, and I cut using the same lines, okay? And then I try to separate a bit also the factions, because like here, Ostican, it is not great to split Ostican off of its 3 villages, because you always like to work in blocks. But either way, I cut it up following the lines, and so I know which villages are, and castles and towns are in which area. So what I do from here is I have a spreadsheet. This is a work in progress. I have, for example, Ireland. I have the list of all the towns, the castles, the villages, the names, the new names, the production, original, the prosperity, and the amount of hearts. My initial mathematical schema was, this is the minimum amount a heart should a village can have of hearts. So the poorest village in the map has 100 and the richest has 900. This is for towns, so this is 1000 minimum, 5500 maximum, and then for castles 250 and 1200. I changed this around slightly, so now it is a bit more. I only changed the hearts. These are calculated actually by consequence. I will explain this. The mathematical schema, so to speak, which I use is that I assign a number, I generate a number for the prosperity of each village based on population estimates. I use population as the equivalent to prosperity because they work in the same way in mount&blade. And once I have Kailra with 1000 prosperity and Odrisa, Kailra with 1000 hearts and Odrisa with 900 hearts, for example, I give the value of the prosperity to its relative, its bound town or castle, based on the prosperity of the hearts of its villages. So I have this to 1000, this to 900. I sum it and take the mean, which is 950, and then I convert 950 in its range. So its range is between 100 and 1200. So 950 between 900 and 1200 is, say, 80th percentile, and so then I convert that into a value for a castle and I assign the value to the castle. Same I do for towns, but in the range between 1000 and 5500. The formulas will be written somewhere because it's hard to explain them this way. So I wrote some Java code to randomize the prosperity of the villages. So I will keep referring to this to prosperity. It's actually hearths, but it's the same number. And to do this, I have two variables, population and village count. So the population I get from this map. This is the estimated population, okay? So I take Italy, it's 3.5. And I put this to 3.5 million, it's already million. Village count is the amount of villages in the area. So I go to this other map, I count up all of the villages, I know it's 24. I separated the isles separately because it's easier to calculate them. So this is 24, and this area of the Alps is also separate, so 24 in this area. I put here the amount of villages, and then I run the program. What the program does is it prints in the console the values for the prosperity, which are randomly generated inside a range, and the amount I tell him, which is 24. The last one is actually not in the range because it is subtracted. It's a mathematical problem. If the last one is outside of the range and you don't like the value, just rerun the program and you get a value inside of the range, and so everything is fine. So then I take those values, I go back to my chart. So I destroyed the African one to do calculations. So this is Italy, okay? I paste them here, and those are the heart values for the villages in Italy. Then I go back to the map, I start from the bottom, I take Locri, and I say, okay, so Locri has 954. Where do I find Locri? I go to the mount&blade code project. I use IntelliJ IDEA as an editor, but whatever you use, you should be familiar with where the stuff can be found. So this is the directory, this is the name of the project, module data folder, Total War Bannerlord settlements.xml. You open this and you have a list of all the settlement information of the mod. I said Locri, so Control F is for search, Locri, and here I have Locri. So Locri is bound to Panormos, okay, and this is because Locri, its name, okay, in-game is settlement, EMC, village, and then the last part, ES3, okay. If you search ES3 just above, this is the town ES3, okay. And the town ES3 has ES3-1, ES3-2, and ES3 village, okay? These are the bound villages of this town. Usually they're below, sometimes they're not, sometimes you have to search. So I know Panormos has bound villages Agrigentum, Locri, and Zestea, and I need to change the values now. Here is the hearts, here is the value. I already changed those, so I will not change them again. Here, just before the hearts, is the village type. Village type refers to the production of the village. So the small symbol you see next to the village is the stuff they produce, and this can be edited in this same file. So we chose to put the stuff in a way that was more made more sense to us. For example, we removed the silk because silk comes from China during using the Silk Road. Or, for example, in mount&blade, we noticed with the Lemmis Europe map, we need more food production because some areas go into food shortage because of the layout of the map. It is harder for caravans to supply all of the map. And so the trade is weird, and so we need more food. So we increased the amount of food producing villages from 55% to 60% in hope to compensate this issue. The secondary issue is that let's take Roma and Siracusa, okay? These towns are famous in this age for their enormous population, like hundreds of thousands. Like Rome was estimated to have 400,000 people in this age, more or less. So to reflect this, we want to give it a very high prosperity. And the highest we said is 5,500. I recently changed the formula slightly, so it can go a bit higher, but still 5,500. The problem is that Rome, if I set artificially its prosperity to 5,500, it will require a lot of food. This population will eat a ton of food, and then it goes into food shortage very quickly, and then it becomes starved, and then it loses prosperity, and at the same time it becomes extremely riotous, and so Rome becomes a hard town to hold for the Romans, and so this destabilizes an area. So it is very important for each area to be stable, because the factions are very small, so they can't absorb a lot of losses. Like Ancona, if they take Ancona, this faction is done, the other three are just villages. So to have areas like Italy and Greece, which are extremely high population and so high prosperity, to keep them stable, we choose to have every village produce just food. So every town has as much food as humanly possible with the bound villages, and so we hope that this keeps the prosperity in check. If during testing we see that towns go into starvation, we will have to reduce the prosperity of that town until we find a level for starvation. At the moment I don't know the tailwards math behind this, so it is not a solved problem. Either way, we take Rome and its two villages, Gaeta and Grossetum. We put the heart values into the villages. We go back to the spreadsheet, say we picked those three values for Siracusa. We put them here, and here this calculates the town prosperity. This is a pretty simple formula. It takes the average between values 1, 2, 3, and 4. Here there is 4 because some towns have only 2 villages and it still works. Some towns have 3 villages and some towns have 4 villages, and it works independently if it's 2 or 4 on this spreadsheet. Then it subtracts 100, which is the base of the village. So now I have a percentage again. And then divide this percentage with the range, which is 900 minus 100, so it's 800. To get the percentage value, then I multiply this percentage value by the prosperity range. This is 4,500. And then I add the prosperity base, which is 1,000. So this means that the maximum amount it should have is it's 5,500, and the minimum amount is 1,000. As I said, I changed around the math a bit, so now the hearts are a bit higher than 900. They're like 950, 1,998. So this gets a bit higher, but still this is the value I will then assign to the town, and then we go to this town here, and here prosperity, and we have the prosperity value. I already changed this, so I will not change it again. Then here there's the village type, production, date farm, sheep farm, fisherman. These, as I explained on the map, will all be changed to food producing, and they have already been changed, so now they produce food. On this spreadsheet I have the exact same formula, but for castles. Castles only have 2 settlements usually, but this works also for 3, I think, or 1, I think. And it's the same, it's the average, and then it subtracts it by 100 to get the percentage value. This gets the percentage in an actual percentage, and then it multiplies it by the range of the castles, which is 1,000, and then it adds the base, which is 250, so the maximum should be 1,250. It is a bit higher because I changed the prosperity values, and we do this for castles. And this gives us the possibility of editing all of the map, editing both the prosperity of all the settlements and therefore how rich the settlements are. And so Italy is more powerful because it actually was richer at the time because it had a higher population, and the map accurately at least tries to reflect that. We can change the production of the villages because some production doesn't make sense, like we wanted to have more fur production in the north, wood production in area where actually there's a lot of plants. We don't want silk production, we want olives to be in Italy, we want salt to be near the coast, we want some horses to be in the right areas, etc. And so we changed all of that based on research and current situation. Like for example, grapes are mainly produced in France and Italy. So Italy and France have a lot of grapes, while olives are, for example, especially famous in the southern part of Italy. I can attest to this since I live in Italy. And so we changed it also based on what we wanted it to look like for historical accuracy purposes. And this concludes the work we did on this. I hope this guide was helpful in any way to either keep the work I was doing going or to implement this in your own mod. I think this is a very useful aspect to give realism and control over the map. Thank you for your attention.